I'm so grateful. You are the carriers of Toki's memory and legacy and meaning on earth to carry forth. So I appreciate you so much, all of you. And I'm seeing messages from afar, from everywhere. It's so incredible. What is Toki's legacy? What is her memory? What is her meaning carrying forth that we can all take with us and make what people say, what people think, how people feel about her? It's many, many and varied. I have my feelings about her, and I think I always try to bring it back to her. And not only because she really is what this is all about, but because she is so amazing, was. It's hard for me to go into past tense, but she was so incredible. She was an inspiration. When we started this in 1995, she was a cause. She was a campaign that I valued, that I believed in strongly. She obviously needed to be home with her family. But as I got to know her and as I got to realize from so many others that got to know her, and I do mean got to know her and she got to know them, her incredible ability, and it's orcas in general have this, southern resident orcas I think in particular, and she most amazingly had this uncanny way of bringing people in to her life, to her feeling, because she felt them and they could feel that she felt them. She had this gift of amplified empathy, that she was just able to see into people's hearts and minds, their own personal feelings of whatever they were going through, their traumas, their depressions, their joys, their feelings toward her. She would sense and reflect, and I know this is true. I've never had that experience myself. I've never been so blessed. I've seen her, of course, but as audience, I lean over the rail, she swims by. But others have been able to have precious quality moments with her, some lasting over years and years. And she just builds that relationship. She builds that trust and that mutual understanding and love and affection and friendships that just don't go away. I think of Marcia Henton, the trainer. In 1995, she was in the documentary Lolita, Spirit in the Water, hosted by Kathy Gertson, another hero. And she said she was under the impression that the filming was about the life of a trainer, not about Toki going home. So she was open and free, but she didn't talk about herself. She talked about Toki. She talked about how much Toki meant to her. And that told me a whole lot about both of them. And Marcia was coming home with her. Marcia had been with her for weeks, months maybe, because she built this relationship. She said in that interview, in that documentary, that when she was down, when she came in feeling she had some upheavals in her life, Toki knew. She looked in her eyes. She looked at how she cocked her head, how she looked at her, how she felt that Toki felt. Brainwaves, I don't know. Empathy vibes, I don't know how. Wordless, but clear. She really understood Marcia. She understood anyone who cared about her, took the time, spent some time with her. And she was the driving force behind her coming home, I promise you. She was able to assemble this completely impossible coalition of the dolphin park owner, the animal rights advocates, the Lummi tribal matriarch, the developer billionaire, the football owner billionaire, all into this coalition working together with a single purpose. Bring her home, bring her home. How do you assemble a group like that to work together, get them to cooperate? They were doing it. They were doing everything they could, and it was working. She was healthy 2 days ago. The reports from the veterinarians and the videos, they were allowing some images to come out finally, and they were showing that she was full of vim and vigor. She was racing around the tank. She does that on her own. You know, I don't know if anyone here ever runs or swims or gets exercise, but you know, it feels good. You've got to get started though. You got to build up steam. She would do that. And in that tiny 80-foot by going around the work island, maybe 50 feet, very tiny oval, just one constant U-turn, but she would whip up the bow waves that would go out of the pool. It's amazing. She did that on her own, and she was doing that until very, very recently. Until, I believe, 2 days ago. The first sign of anything was 2 days ago. She lost her appetite. And they worked on getting her to be able to eat enough all night, and did blood work to see if they could figure it out, and the blood work showed complete renal failure. You may know more, they will examine her, but she was on track. It was becoming inevitable. She was coming home. There was just no other option. And look what happened. I can't fathom it. Yeah, this is not what we had in mind. I couldn't believe it. They told me to look for a tweet yesterday, 2 o'clock. Look for a tweet from Eduardo Albor, and it said, she departed. But what would she want? You know, her legacy should be for her, too, in her name. She would want her family to be well fed and happy. That's why I wear this breach 'em now. We gotta get them more fish, more salmon. Her family needs them. That is the message that we always carried with us. Anything about Toki was also about her family. That was the whole secret sauce of the campaign, was to make sure when people see her, think about her, hear her name, they know she's a Southern resident, that she belongs to her family, that she always did and always will. And that's taboo, you know. That's actually a verboten thought, because the whole reason for keeping her, these are the walls of words that have kept her in that concrete tank for 53 years, was the words that say, that's all she knows. She's been there all her life. She would be lost in the ocean. It's a terrible thing to do to her, to plop her in the ocean. All she knows is us trainers, right? a little bit of, self-importance going on there, and ignorance. She was born and raised by her family, by the southern residents, taught how to catch fish, how to communicate. I bet she was a chattermouth. I bet she was just chattering all the time up until that horrible day. And in fact, she never quit. We have recordings. She kept chattering to her family, I guess, the entire 53 years and 10 days that she was in there, because we have some that were smuggled out, not a lot, but enough to be identified as Southern resident calls that she kept using. She learned those from her family, from her mom, from her entire extended community. She learned everything she needed to know. Ken used to say she got the grammar school part. She went to school, she learned all she needed. They never knew that in Miami. When they would spout off about how, oh, it'll kill her, they had no idea that she was going home, that this would be a relief. Medically, it would be therapeutic for her. It would help clean up those mystery infections that she had. I'm sure it would have. And they could have done that any time. Well, certainly since Ken and all of you and about 100,000 other people around the world started telling them, let her go home, they could have known this, that she maybe is still a Southern resident.
Yes.
She is.
She was the epitome of resilience, and I believe she is still here, but in a different form. And like you said, she brought the whole world eyes on her, and she was about family. And so now it's time to move back to the family.
That's exactly right. That's what she would want. And that's where she is now.
She would say this on the
Jan?
I've had a tough job of calling my grandchildren to let them know about this. And they live in the concrete of LA, but believe me, they're orphanages. They're not there since they were very small. And they don't understand either. And I don't think all of us, any of us, will ever really understand why and why now. And Annabella said to me, well, Graham, I just hope they let the rest of them go. And I said, that's what it's about.
Exactly.
That's hope behind it, Hal.
I know, this is hope. Very well.
That's hope. So I've been trying to muster my own hope and spread it around as much as I can. And I hope all of you will do the same for Toki.
Yes. And you know,
She would say this on a beautiful summer evening. She would say, young friends, trust a few, but always paddle your own canoe.
trust, love many, trust a few, but always paddle your own canoe. Okay. And, you know, a little illustration of what we're talking about her still being a part of her family, was the last 2 days around the San Juan Islands when all of J's, K's, and L's came in exactly when she was dying in Miami. Exactly when. And they weren't just foraging. I wasn't there, but I saw some of the footage. They were mingling, you know, socializing. They were in some kind of ceremonial mode. I don't know. Nobody knows what they were doing exactly, but it's just too uncanny to not be somehow connected with her. I can play with amateur physics and figure out how brain waves and electromagnetic vibrations might go, beyond our ability to measure them. But somehow there's always this synchronicity of orcas knowing when something is happening.
Yes.
When J57 was born 3 years ago in Harrow Strait in the morning, K and L Pod, she was with J Pod. They had been up in Georgia Strait. They came down around the San Juans with the new baby. It was not there the day before. And K's and L's were 50 miles away, way out in the Pacific. They came a running. They came charging in. And when they met up, this wasn't a feeding frenzy. This was a super pod gathering, roly-poly, cuddle, puddle, I don't know what you want to call it. But they were there to meet and greet and rebuild all their bonds and show each other they loved each other, and I don't know what all, but they were there for that baby. It was just so simultaneous. It was exactly when. And then they all turned around and went back out to sea. That's one of their ceremonies, but how did they know way out there? How do they know when other things happen? When Ralph Monroe was meeting at Limekiln to dedicate and memorialize J6, who had just died, who was named Ralph in his honor. The way Ralph Monroe tells it was that it was set for 1:30, and J-Pod showed up not at 1:25, not at 1:35. They showed up at 1:30, and one female started breaching 5 times, quick breaching. Susan was there. She saw it. I was in Miami at the time. But that turned out to be J8, J6's sister. So how did they know that Ralph and that whole gaggle of people were there to honor her brother? It's amazing. It's just hard to fathom. You can look at their gigantic brains and their paralimbic lobe and their, brain waves, but they seem to know. They know when there are ceremonies about them. They may know about us. Right here, right now. I wouldn't doubt it.
Put on your tin hat.
Yeah. So, Toki's home. She's with her family now. And I know you all will carry her message and her memory and her legacy and her purpose. And I appreciate that ever so much. That's how it happens.
Holly,
I kind of run out, but please.
we know that you also lost your brother, Ken, back this year. And can you imagine Ken and Toki somewhere up there?
Yeah. Ken is certainly my ancestor now. And I think Toki's an ancestor too.
Granny.
And Granny and J6 and I know.
We're all together now,
So,
right?
and Chief Salik. And yeah.
Is Toby's mother still living?
Is Toki's mother still living? We think so, but we don't have the DNA evidence for that. But no matter. She's a matriarch of the right age. She's hovering around 90, give or take 5 years. She was just seen day before yesterday in this beautiful photo that Micheline Halliday took, a sunset photo, Thursday evening of her, L25 Ocean Sun, apart from the rest, kind of out by herself. Really intriguing photo. What was going on in that? So, and she travels 100 miles a day with the rest of them and catches fish and shares them, and she's still a, you know, working member of the family. Um,
I would
so
just add
she
that
tells us a lot.
Toki's life
I'm
is
sorry?
a poignant reminder to all humans that what happened to her and the others cannot ever happen again. And it still happens in other places around the world.
Mhm.
We have to do that. That's
Yes.
what I know everybody always has
Right.
on their mind. But I think her life is the lesson that's given to us.
Honoring her makes that point. I mean, she should never have been violated like that. And no animal should. And that message we can definitely take. Yeah, I mean, what happened to her was an atrocity. It was terrible. But she made the best of it. You know,
Show us every day.
that's, I mean, it's terrible what happened, but it's amazing how she adapted, how she lived, and was able to accommodate in a way. You know, she knew exactly, you know, where she was and what she had to do. Do this trick for this food, this trick for this food, you know, and still the best way is to maintain good relationships. So she didn't fight, she didn't hurt anybody, she didn't strike out. She stayed really peaceful the whole time, gentle, courageous, and gentle. And so she tells us that you can live through a lot. And I think she knew the whole time who she was and that she was coming home. I think she had that in her mind the whole time. Susan has been, of course, not just a co-pilot. She took over controls a lot of the time, and has kept this campaign and kept me alive. And has a few words. Go ahead.
I had some words. Yeah. Wow, it's just really good to see so many faces. And that's what makes me cry. I've been really just kind of in a daze. I think yesterday we're all so shocked because she was doing so well, and you know, she's been so strong and so healthy. And sorry, I kind of got here late. I was thinking we were just doing an interview, and then we were going to come up with this dinner. And so I apologize if I. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So I apologize if I repeat anything that Howie's said. And I also am kind of trying to not get pneumonia, so I will project as much as I can. So forgive my gasping in between if I do. So the one thing that strikes me, and you are all an example of this, is how Toki touched people deeply, all of us. She had a way of just getting inside of us and healing us. As we tried to help her, she helped us so we could help her. And she was amazing at doing that. I've watched her do it time and time again over the last 30 years. It's incredible. And she helped us help her, and she helped us help her family. And our work is not done. We're going to keep doing that. And we're going to do it. We're going to work harder on her behalf, still for her and her family, because her spirit is still with us. And it's with her family, finally swimming free with them. And, you know, know, her spirit and her beauty and her strength were so immense. They were larger than her large body. She was just huge. Her spirit will live on. So I remember that night in 1994 when Wally Funk came to our Beach Watchers meeting and showed pictures of the capture. And I really hadn't known that much about the captures. So first I was horrified, and then how we had heard about it, the presentation through our friend Fred Bellman, who's now the port commissioner in Seattle Port. And so he showed up because they had just started the campaign to bring Toki home. And so he stood up and talked about Lolita and how she was an El Pod whale still alive in Miami. And I was just like, I'm in. We got to bring this whale home. And to me, that just felt really urgent. You know, and whales don't live that long in captivity. And she had already been there, 25 years, 24 years. And I felt, from that moment on, I lived every day in dread of getting the call that Toki had died. Except these last 6 months or so. She was so healthy, I didn't expect it. And that's why it's been so hard, because she was doing so well, and we were so close after all that time. So anyway, I just knew I had to help her come home. And I hadn't even met her, and she still, it's like she grabbed me, and I knew. And then when I met her, and she looked into my eyes, and we had several moments, and I talked to her, and I had brought pictures of a new calf that had been born, and I'm showing her this little snapshot, and she looked at it, and she looked with both eyes, and I swear she knew. I was telling her, here's a new family member, and we're working to bring you home, and we're going to do it, and we aren't going to stop trying until we bring you home. And I promised her, and I feel so bad, because we were so close, and there were so many times that I felt like we had let her down and we weren't going to make it, because it just felt impossible. I never thought this aquarium would let her go. And finally, miracle of miracles, they were going to do it. And we had the money, and we had the people, and we had the Lummi tribe, we had the ancestors, and so that all of that just made it really hard, and we're just kind of still in shock. So she did that anyway. So we had that talk, and she got into my heart and my soul, and like all of you and many others around the globe who never even met her, she changed their hearts and she changed their lives. I've just known so many people who changed their whole lives because of Toki. And the diversity of people that she has touched. If you look at the friends of Toki and the Lummi tribe, a football owner, a football franchise owner, a developer, animal rights group, all these different people that you would normally not see forming a coalition to bring a whale home. And I just laughed when I saw that press conference in a dolphin company. And you don't see these people sitting around a table gushing. I mean, at press conference, people were saying, oh, that was not a very professional press conference. And all I could see was, look at these people. Toki has gotten inside their hearts, and all they can talk about is their personal, experience and how Toki has touched them. And she just had a way of doing that. And that was her gift. And she just did that over and over, and I hope people will remember her for that, and I hope we can honor her that way and remember her that way and somehow find a way to keep that spirit alive in the work that we keep doing for her. And she was sweet. She had a sense of humor, and she would splash water on people. And she had a good sense of humor. if she wasn't as fond of some people, she would do something kind of silly to them. and she knew people's intent. If people visited her and she knew they were people who were there working on her behalf to bring her home, she knew that. I mean, she really knew who the special people in her life were, and she could feel that, and she connected with them. And of course, she was smarter than all of us put together, and stronger than any being I know. Most orcas in captivity typically ended up really going crazy, or most of their teeth were worn down from chewing on the bars, or just Hugo basically committed suicide by ramming his head against the tank. And she somehow, whether it was just her belief that she would come home, or she knew that there were people trying to get her home, or just her special spirit, that she somehow remained strong, and was able to survive. But so she knew her family was waiting, and I don't know if you talked that she had been using. We knew she had been using her family's calls while she was in the sequarium, but she was using the other pod calls as well in those last months. So we don't, I get goosebumps every time we tell these stories, and how we probably already, you talked about the super pod and the L12s, and so we know their brains are much bigger than ours, and there are parts of their brains we don't even have and don't comprehend. But, she knew her family was waiting, and they knew she was coming to them, so, they were there in their super pod, and they knew she was coming to them before we did. And that's when when she passed, and putting all that together, it was like suddenly it made me feel so much better, because I knew she was with them and she was home. Did you talk about Rosie? Okay, so knowing that her family was having that super pod, so knowing that the family had the super pod and their big community celebration. And then it was just the L12s, just her family, the day she died. So Cindy Hansen, our education coordinator, called to share the news yesterday with Rosie Caillou James from the Samish, who has been our longtime friend and spiritual guide and friend of Toki. And Rosie told her this, that Toki's spirit left her body and came home before she stopped breathing. And she said that usually when a spirit joins a pod or a tribal family, the young ones will celebrate, and the older ones will often separate themselves from the group. And Cindy relayed that actually what they saw last night at Lime Kiln, the night that Toki died, the calves were playing, and L25 was way offshore by herself. And there are some beautiful pictures at sunset off Lime Kiln. And Rosie did not know any of that when she relayed this to, and it's just all of that can bring us some peace, and knowing that Toki was with her family. And so many of us loved her for so many reasons. actually, Toki brought Howie and I together. And yesterday, in the middle of all the phone calls and media, and just, we're still just kind of in shock. And I stopped and I turned to Howie and I said, are we still going to be okay together now that, now that Toki's gone? We knew that she was the reason we were brought together, and we've been together all these years. And we decided we think we're going to be okay. I think we still have but, you know, she has really just given purpose to a lot of our lives, and brought attention to her family, the Southern residents, and that's really what we want to do in her memory and on her behalf. You know, and I really had hoped with bringing her home, we would bring the world's attention not just to Toki, but to her family and to the salmon they need and to the health of the Salish Sea. And, you know, the Lummi believed that too, and the Friends of Toki, that was all of our belief in this whole thing. It wasn't just about bringing Toki home. That was a big part of it, but it was righting the wrongs of the past, not just that we removed so many whales so cruelly from their families, but also what we've done to their habitat and their food. So we want to right those wrongs. Our work isn't done. And, you know, I just kept thinking about how Toki had changed so many people and done so many things and brought people together that wouldn't be working together otherwise. And I'm like, she's going to save the orcas, and she's going to save the salmon, and she's going to save the Salish Sea, and she's going to save the world, you know. I mean, I was just like, Toki's going to do it. You know, she really was an incredible whale. And, you know, she may be yet. I really do I feel her spirit now. I just get goosebumps. You know, so we're going to continue that work. And I know everyone that she has touched, her work isn't done, and our work isn't done. And, you know, she is finally home and swimming free out of that horrible little tank. And she's with her family. And I want to part with just thanking everybody here and everybody around the whole world. It's just, I'm just so astounded by the number of people everywhere around the world who this whale has touched. She just had that spirit, and I know so many of us are grieving, and I haven't even begun to even believe it or accept it, or I wouldn't even be standing here. And at some point, I'm just going to melt into a puddle and cry, but that'll be a day or two from now, probably. But I want to thank everybody who's been on this journey. Some of us, John, had those moonlight sails on the Cuddy Sark. Jan, so many who've been part of this journey for so long. Thank you all, Deb. So many. Thank you, Sandra and Dick.
The studio calls. Well, as we're energized to fulfill Toki's legacy and purpose, I hope we all are. I am continually just blown away by the passion, by the depth of feeling that people have for Toki and for her family. Toki and her family are one. If you think of Toki, think of her family. Thank you.
like Saturday Night Live. Michael, Michael from the Ten Cove Water Festival.
Susan got me involved in the Penn Cove Water Festival about 14 years ago. And it's been one of the most meaningful experiences in my life with all the people and friends that I've met. And Jim and I, my partner and I, we live literally on the edge of Penn Cove, right literally in front of our house was the place where she was taken. And so when we look out there, we've thought of her many times over the years. And what I wanted to say too is that you two have become her family along with the London people. You're part of the car to me. And you're my heroes, both of you. And I bring the condolences of the Water Festival to both of you. And you have done such an amazing thing. We want to thank you. I keep the artwork of the Water Festival. It's done by Roger Perdue, who is of Shimshan heritage. And in 2014, he gave us the image of Tokitae. This is actually, that's what he dedicated it to. These are the last two posters of Tokitae. Thank you. Good, thank you.
Oh, no. Yeah, she's touched many hearts, and I have to say we've had emails this morning from the mayor and the town of Coopville, from the Pinko Water Festival, and from the Coopville Chamber of Commerce, all saying they want to do some sort of permanent memorial and events for Toki. And this is the day after she died. So her spirit runs deep in that community. And that was just so very, very touching to get those emails.
Has anyone been saving up something to say?
I have a question.
A question.
Just a question. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about this, but is there any way that Tokitae is going to come home like ashes
There is.
or anything like that? 'Cause
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
The question is there any way that Toki's remains will come home? Yes, definitely. In fact, the owner of the marine park, and he really, by the law of the land, he owns. He said he will personally bring her back to the Salish Sea. So
Well, and the Lummies are there right now.
the Lummies will
The
make
Lummies.
sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they are the ones who are the right party to ask for that, and
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
John?
Just want to give you a hug.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you.
John was there when Toki was captured.
Oh,
Well, let me say a couple words then.
John has some things to say.
Well, just when I think about the last 30 years, Susan and Howie have been made this their life's work, and I thank you so much for that. But when I think about this whale and the other whales, I mean, I had a special relationship with J1 Ruffles, and when I hear the magic, and thinking of Shakespeare, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt in our philosophy, Horatio, or Howie, or me. And I had an experience with Ruffles, J1, where I had seen him at the whale capture, and he and I had a close encounter. And then 20 years later, we had another close encounter. He was way over there. I was telling the passengers on my ship about that whale over there. See, that's Ruffles. That's my friend. And I told them about my encounter and how he didn't upset my boat as I was heading back to get Wally Funk, who was taking all those pictures that you've seen. And no sooner did I say, there is Ruffles, my friend, than he was way over there. This is up by Spiden Island. And he turned and came directly to my ship, went down the side of my ship, eyeing everyone there. And I could not explain it until this last time when someone said, there is a part of the brain of the orca that is not well understood, but might explain that experience.
The Paralimbic.
And then when we hear what happened off of San Juan just the other day, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know.
And it is so powerful. But my philosophy basically is we are all altered by our experience with Tokitae and me and with Ruffles, and so she and he live with us now, and we are changed by that experience. And by being changed by that experience, by everyone that you meet, they are changed by that experience. And so she lives on.
Yes, she
So,
lives on in us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
You mentioned reaching the dams. Can you give some specific
Okay.
information about that?
Yeah, what can we do
What
to
all of us
Ah.
do?
everyone know what we can do from
Thank you, Deb. Deb Lund, who was right there in the very beginning of the Toki campaign, wrote a kid's book about it. Asked about why the dams. What's the particulars on the dams? Well, we're talking about the 4 lower Snake River dams. They were built in the 60s and early 70s, and they block access for migrating salmon and adramous fish to 5,500 square miles of pristine wilderness spawning habitat in southern Idaho. And they kill fish. And those fish, and this was the biggest nursery of fish anywhere in the world, or at least equal to all the rest of the Columbia Basin. Probably about 50-50, but so half of that incredible mass of fish, millions and millions of fish, especially Chinook salmon of all varieties, fall and spring and summer, they all get killed by the dams. And the main way that they get killed is not so much the spawners trying to get up, although that's a huge blockage for them, but it's the smolts trying to get down, because they go down the river and they land in a lake. They land in a stagnant pool, basically. And there they get disoriented, they become subject to predators, they don't make it past 4 dams. So if those 4 dams could be taken down, estimates are that about 10 million smolts would make it to the ocean that don't now. And that's after they've been in the mountains for about a year. So they're not tiny, they're good size, ready to survive in the ocean if they make it in time, according to their metabolic clock, that changes their whole metabolism to live in the ocean. The reservoirs mess that up too. So the dams have to come out. They're just not that valuable. They're replacements for all the services, and it needs to be done. It needs to be started now. So, and now is the time, by the way, to call the White House. The best hope right now for removing those dams is an executive order from President Biden, that if he would write that order, there is a window of time till the end of August. And I don't know the particulars of exactly why. Maybe somebody does that can explain that, but it doesn't really matter. Call the number. If you just look up whitehouse.gov and it'll give you the comment line. You can comment online, or it gives you the number to call. And Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, they're live operators, and they'll talk to you. They'll jot down your message. Just say, please ask the president to issue an executive order to remove the 4 Snake River dams. Woohoo! They'll get the message. Do that, please. Ring the bell on that? Does anyone else have a comment, a word, an inspiration? Yes.
Where was Tokitae found when she passed away?
She was in that pool. They lowered the water because 24 hours before her last breath, she lost her appetite and was non-responsive, really. So what they do in that case, they lower the water. And the back pool is only 12 feet anyway, so they lower it to about 5 or 6. And that's where she was stationary. She didn't move in the last hours. So, in the pool. Right there.
But she was with all of
No, but wait a minute.
that loved her. They all loved her.
They were with her.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
They had 20 care staff, all her veterinary team, and she had round the clock care with her while she was that last day when she was very sick. Well, she had round the clock staff with her all the time anyway, since the Toki, friends of Toki took over. But, she had been sick like the day before. But they, since she had the stomach issue, and then like that, yesterday when she got really sick, there were 20 people with her working feverishly to treat her, and they were all, we talked yesterday to our Stephanie Norman, the Seattle vet, who is, one of the 2 vets that the Toki, Friends of Toki had hired, who's also our Stranding Network vet and friend, and she's not there. She has flown back there for some of the monthly examinations, but she had been in touch with them, and they're very like doctors who lose their patient, because they had just done their monthly exam and blood work and everything, and she had been fine, and the main vet had just said she's healthier than he's ever seen her, and so they were all in shock, and just been this little stomach issue that they were treating her for, and she was kind of off her food, and then suddenly went into renal failure. But so there were 20 people with her when she passed, and they really have a loving care team and trainers who were past trainers who were really close to her that they have brought back in these last months that they haven't really let people know about that I'm not supposed to talk about, but I guess I can now. I can't get in trouble for it now. But, so the thing we can feel good about is that she was really, really happy in her last months there, and that they had, they'd put in really good chillers in the water, really good filtration systems. They'd improved things there for her as, to the best they could. They had improved her diet, so they've really made things there as good as they could for her while they were also working to get her out of there. And, she was playing and happy and active, and, so that's good. It's sad that it wasn't for a longer time that she was happy like that, and sad that couldn't continue on to her coming home, but she wasn't alone when she passed. And actually, She was with
Yes.
her family. Her spirit was with her family.
Looking at the bigger picture of all the sea worlds in the world, are there still captive orchids everywhere in the sea world?
The question is bigger picture of captivity in the world, and it's really all in China. Now, it's really only China that is still trying to expand, but they depended on a supply of orcas from Russia. And a couple of years ago, some just amazing, incredible scientists and activists in Russia managed to get through the Ministry of the Environment to get them to put a ban on any further captures and any export of the ones captured. So that left 10 orcas and 89 belugas in captivity that were sent to be delivered. They put a stop on that, and after about a year, finally, they just trucked them out to the edge of the water and dumped them in the water, basically. It shows it can work. And it was only yesterday that somebody posted a photo of one of them. Well, no, a couple days. I saw it yesterday. It was a video of some scientists out doing photo ID population studies, and here comes one up with that radio tag that they put on when they dumped them in the water. Swimming right alongside, you know, if not family adopted. I mean, you know, as close as possible to being family, just like a normal wild whale. Did fine. Good indication that they probably all did. So that's where it is. No more captures.
But
China's the outlier.
So we, and there's still, as far as there's Corky, the northern resident whale at San Diego SeaWorld, as far as any
Yeah.
West Coast, you know,
Right.
what hybrid,
She's a lot like
inbreeding.
Toki, except she's in SeaWorld.
Yeah, it
And
was not
they're not going
easy
to talk.
to let her go from, but we never thought they would let Toki go either.
She's also, she's 56 or 7. She was captured before Toki, about a year and a half, but at a younger age, so about the same. So mid to late 50s. And there's people, there's a sanctuary, a sea pen, a whole compound ready to receive her. But SeaWorld won't talk. Michelle?
I just have another little inspirational story.
Can you-
Sorry. Some of us, I'm sure, were all there, but I remember at the Superpod conference, I think it was 2015, the Southern residents hadn't been down, from Australia for months. You look at line film, you look at the calendar, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And, of course, people are obviously trying to those of us that are working Poland, doing anything we can to save the Southern residents and to save, the captive situation. And you go out there in the last night, go out to line film, never forget it. We all went out to the end and we're like, looking, we have this really big crowd of the two of us. And sure enough, Miguel's a really good whale spotter, right? it's his magic. And sure enough, he's like, I see them, they're coming. And everyone's like, no, they're not coming. He's like, yes, they are, they're coming. And sure enough, you could see way in the distance, these triangles just coming up. And they come across the street. Hey, we do, I think what them, that's all right. And just come down. And they just stayed in front of us and played and breathed and tails up. I mean, for hours. It was dark and they were still there. It was crazy. It was so weird to leave because it was pitch black, but they were all still there. And it was like, oh my God, I can't leave. They're still here. They were there for hours. It was crazy. And I just thought, if that wasn't a moment of magic, if that was not them coming just to say, thank you. Like, we know you're pulling for us. You know, I just will never ever forget that night. It was just amazing. There was even double rainbows.
Yeah, you can be assured they knew you were there. They knew.
Oh, I know they knew. I know that. So, and I just want to say that I feel like Toby is just too big for this world.
Yeah.
He was just too big for this world. I don't think that any single being on this earth could come through what she went through and remain the way she remained and do what she did. And I just think she's too big for this world. And I just really think that her legacy is going to be saving the Southern residents. And I know I'm never going to quit. No matter what, I'm never ever quit on that.
I know you won't.
She's going to be able to push through things for them that she couldn't do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle.
here on the earth.
That was
Yeah.
beautiful.
I've got one more question.
Okay.
What about the orcas in San Diego?
Yeah, the orcas in San Diego. Well, Corky is who we talked about.
Okay.
Is like the matriarch. At her age, last I heard, she is the leader. She is the one who teaches not just the new whales, the younger whales, how to do things. She teaches the trainers how to relate. I don't know a whole lot of particulars, but they're there. But they keep doing the shows. They stay in business. People keep paying money.
Well, and that's what the whale sanctuary project is, trying to do the sanctuary if they can get SeaWorld orcas or other whales
Right.
free, but it's that getting them free, and that's what we hit up against for 30 years with Toki, was getting the marine parks to let, and we were just one little marine park that wasn't a huge conglomerate, that marine park industry is really strong, so it's, but, Blackfish did a lot, and the young people, when Blackfish came out, those kids are growing up and things are changing, the rules were changed, and the marine park industry was really part of NOAA fisheries in the beginning, and even NOAA fisheries are starting to change a little bit, and so
It's a formidable industry.
it's
Let's
a
put it that
slow
way.
process.
With a whole mythology and thousands of employees and tentacles in the scientific community by hosting conferences and nurturing scientists. And they all have to believe once in captivity, always in captivity. That's the rule. If you say anything different, you're out of there. You're blackballed. So they're very powerful and they reinforce their rules. They really do. So,
But there is a sanctuary for her. There's a sanctuary in Canada.
yes.
And there's also a millionaire behind it to take care of everything. So
Yeah.
with what went on with Toki, maybe we could, start the momentum and get and free Corky. She's the last northern resident
Right.
after the capture. And take some Turkey. Yes, thank you. Exactly. So use your voice.
She's earned
voice
it.
for the voices, because we could, turn that into something. I don't, just saying.
Yeah. Well, there's hope. There's hope.
Maybe Toki can help us more from the other side.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what her power is on that side. And then we've got Ken on the other side too. That's scary. The two of them may be planning all kinds of things.
Yes.
You mentioned the narrow window of time in which we might be able to apply the administration to remove the Snake River Dam and the cascading improvement in so many things in our ecosystem and the lives of these magnificent creatures. With all of the outpouring of support and love and grief around Tokitae, is there an effort underway to mobilize a campaign to get people to send the letters, make the phone calls, write the emails?
There sure is.
How does one connect into that network?
Damntruth.org is a good place to start. Damn Truth. The Damn Truth.org has the instructions, has the place to call or write, and reasons why, and goes into the 137 mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fish that depend on those Snake River, on the river itself being a working river. Yes.
Save Our Salmon.
Save Our Salmon is a good group. They're working on it. Yeah, they are. John?
Well, the thought occurs to me that as more of us go solar, and I just built a solar shed, so I may never recoup the cost, but I might save the salmon. And as more of us go solar, the dams become less and less of a viable option for producing electricity, and then there's no reason not to.
Right. Yeah, John mentions going solar, and that is happening at a huge scale, big time. And that alleviates the need for power.
It's damn sense.
Well, there's both, actually,
Oh,
but,
there's two, because I looked at damn truth and I didn't.
oh, there isn't a Damn Truth?
But damn sense is. Oh, did you? I found a band. Okay, never mind.
I think, okay, it can be either. Take your pick, Damn Truth or Damn Sense. Damnsense.org, damntruth.org, both good. They'll take you to the same place. You're the program from here on out. So join in, cuddle puddle amongst yourselves, whatever you'd like to do.
So,
I can be prompted, but otherwise I'm out of words.
so Stephanie was gonna make,
Stephanie was gonna make,
make a, so Stephanie was gonna help.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think I'm
say
gonna say what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah,
We'll see.
right.
So we do have the entryway of the Whale Center open with a memory book. And we'd really love it if everyone could stop by and write something in the memory book. There's also a little, there's some memorabilia and things like that, but maybe not all at once. So we're also going to be continuing to gather down by the water for sharing stories and continuing to just support each other right now. So that's what you want me to say, right?
Yeah, and I'm gonna play my flute down there too shortly, just to kind of do a, little informal ceremony. And
thank you all for being here.
thank you.